So I wanted to thank everybody for joining today's call for ways to easily manage clinical trials. I have the pleasure of having our partner Haspoa here with us today and Debbie Taylor to share her expertise with us. Just a quick insight into Debbie. Debbie is the CEO of Haspoa and Cloud-Based Services. She has her BA from Princeton University and a MBA from Stanford University. Debbie has extensive industry experience in helping biotech and technology companies with systems for improving their operating results. So with that, I'm excited to have Debbie share with you how you can get the most out of your data to help with your clinical trials. Debbie, please take it away.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. My name is Debbie Weil-Taylor, and over the past 25 years, I've been lucky enough to work with healthcare companies, biotech companies, organizations focused on analytics, and tech companies. My current ventures are Cloud-Based Services and Haspoa. And Haspoa is a firm that really that creates systems to help manage clinical trials. Haspoa partners with Tableau. Tableau is simply the best in the analytics business. They create tools that let you find patterns in your data and easily improve your business. But let's talk a little bit about someone else. This is Jackson. Jackson was born in 2002 to my friends Catherine and Ned, and when he arrived, he was immediately diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And for those of you who don't know, cystic fibrosis is the buildup of mucus in your lungs. So Jackson's life expectancy is 37, and that's all the sadder because his twin brother Graham has a life expectancy of a normal boy born in 2002, and that's 76 years. Ned and Catherine do everything they can to help Jackson, but Jackson needs a whole team. And his team includes researchers who are trying to find new drugs to treat him, Vertex and other pharmaceutical companies who take those chemical compounds and turn them into drugs, and also medical centers and doctors' offices where they test these new compounds that companies like Vertex create. And that testing, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is called clinical trials. Now, clinical trials are much bigger than Jackson. They're huge. Currently, there are 7,000 trials going on around the world, and over 1 million people participate in them. They happen everywhere. Currently, there are 200,000 study sites. And the average cost per trial is $500 million. The average trial takes 12 years. And researchers at Tufts University have validated what many in the industry have realized for years, and I realize that is some of you who are on the call, and that's that there's a lot of waste in clinical trials. In fact, they've quantified the waste to be 10%. So $50 million per trial and about a year of time could be saved if we all had better systems to share and pull together information to make better decisions. Now, as some of you on this call are part of the chain that you're seeing here. You work for pharmaceutical or biotech companies that sponsor clinical trials. You work for clinical research organizations which run studies for drug companies or medical device companies or pharmaceutical companies. Some of you are clinical study managers who manage a particular trial. And some of you work at hospitals and medical centers actually running the trials. We even are lucky enough on this call to have people who work in the labs who analyze the patient specimens. Now, clinical trials are really complex. They include lots and lots of business processes. For example, when Vertex discovered a new compound, in this case ibafactor, that reduced the swelling in the lungs of cystic fibrosis patients, their work was just beginning. They then needed to design a protocol to measure how much the swelling went down and how much air went through the lungs when patients took ibafactor. They had to create budgets for this trial and then create contracts with all the different entities that would be involved. Vertex created study plans, milestones, and ways to aggregate all that data. And the folks in the Vertex finance department are still working on forecasting. In this case, it's revenue now, but for the next drug, they're working on forecasting how much the next clinical trial will cost. So if raising Jackson takes a village, getting a clinical trial done takes every department in an organization. And the more organizations that are involved in studies, the more systems that are in place. And unfortunately, in this world of new technology, the old technology, Excel and Word, are still the most common ways that information is shared between different parts of the clinical trial ecosystem. It's great when we can take data that's sitting in our clinical trial management systems or in our financial systems or in the documents in our document management system and instantly put them together to figure out what's really going on today. Some of you live in the ecosystem of managing clinical trials, but for those of you who don't, I just want to give you a quick overview. A sponsor creates a protocol when they're ready to test a new drug, and then releases an RFP or request for proposal from people who want to participate in it. The organizations that want to participate in it are called study sites, and they respond in turn with Excel spreadsheets called bid grids that outline for each specific service how much they're going to bill the study sponsor. The study sponsor then chooses which vendors it wants to work with, registers the vendors in their system, and starts letting contracts. Now, the good news is once the contracts are signed, the sites can start delivering care. But that generates more paper in more different systems. In this case, the documents include invoices for care delivered, updates on milestones that show how many patients have been selected or screened into a study, when the first patient was treated, how many patients have had how many doses of the medicine, and what adverse effects, if any, were seen. So the study sponsor is receiving these bills, these results, and these regulatory reports. And as some of you on the call know, putting all that data together is really hard. It's really time-consuming. And why is it time-consuming and hard? Well, the onboarding process in many companies is broken, and it's inefficient. It's hard to accurately budget things. Collaborating is hard. Milestones get missed, delaying the trial and creating a need to reforecast everything. And there's also a lack of insight, a lack of that closed feedback loop to find out how vendors are doing. It's easier to find out how well the restaurant down the street serves Chinese food than it is to find out how well a study site that's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars does treating patients. So Tableau and Haspoa have teamed up to try and solve this problem of disparate data and difficult to manage clinical studies. Together, we've created systems that can save money. We estimate that companies that take on the challenge of integrating their data and using analytics can save $50 million during the course of a trial and earn $35 million more in revenue by getting drugs to the market faster. Now, those are big numbers. How do you do that? Well, you take your data that's scattered in different systems and binders and worksheets, and you pull it together so that you can look at your clinical, financial, and regulatory information in one place. Let's take a look at some examples. On the left, you see a formatted Excel spreadsheet. Here, sites or study managers can enter the planned cost or the actual cost for each part of the study in one row. This can be done at the study element level or at the patient service level. Then, with the push of one button, the data can be saved into a SaaS database like Salesforce. By that being done, the most recent data is available to everyone with permission. And charts and graphs that are easy to understand, like this one on the right, appear. So here on the right, you see a simple chart breaking out the charges in a baseline or a planned budget, an actual budget, and the forecasted total cost. By double-clicking, for instance, on the $1,000 in the forecast line, analysts are now able to see in much more detail where that $1,000 is being spent, by whom, and how it can be reduced. This map shows where clinical studies are happening. Here you can see that this study is being conducted in China, the US, Australia, and in parts of Europe. The coloring on this map indicates, as of last night, how many patients were being treated, how many sites were up and running, and how well the study site was doing. Dark green indicates places that are busy, have many patients, and are doing well. The lighter green areas are countries where improvements could be made. Either more sites need to be started, more patients need to be enrolled, or the protocol at the sites in that country needs to be followed more carefully. So let's double-click here on Germany. When we double-click on Germany, we're shown this chart. This chart, again, has your data for your study. And what it shows us here is that the sites in the bottom left-hand corner, H7 and H4, are not doing so well. The data shows that there are lots of deviations from protocol, and the data also show that the billing from those sites is much higher than was planned. In contrast, site H3 over here is operating on budget, it's enrolling and keeping patients in the study for longer, and it's following the protocol. So as a clinical study manager, you now have the data at your fingertips to back up your hunch or to give you a new insight, to get in touch with the folks in Germany and see if either we can migrate patients from one study site to another, or if we should just remember next time we're working in this area to contract with the primary investigator at site H3. Knowing this and knowing this quickly saves time and saves money, and that is one of the ways that we're able to achieve those large savings numbers. Next, I'm going to show you some other visualizations. So bear with me for a minute as we move right into a live demonstration of Tableau. So here, you're able to see my calendar. Here, you're able to see a map of study sites in the United States. You see them labeled, and you see different color circles. In this case, the size of the circle represents the number of patients at that site or the dollar value of the contract. And the color of the circle represents the quality. For study sites, that is a lack of adverse events. And for material suppliers, that's high-quality materials. So let's double-click here to learn more about what's going on with RX Worldwide. When I double-click here, I'm taken right into the data for this vendor. And what this shows me here are some other useful analytics. I'm able to see by year the number of problems. In this case, this is a drug packager, so this would be problems with packaging. And I see a nice trend that there are fewer problems now than there were in 2015. I also can see the number of improvement plans, and I see that we're also having to issue fewer improvement plans. And here I can see the ratio, the percent of problems, of plans to problems, and I want a low number, and in this case that's good, we're down to 15%. I can take a look at the severity of the problems that we have over here, and I can see that most of these problems are of low severity. And here below, I can see the fiscal impact of these problems. Now again, because all of this is available at a single click, I'm able to use the data and make changes in real time. Let's flip now and take a look at how we're able to use analytics to better manage study budgets. This is an example of the breakdown of one budget by cost component or study element. You'll see here in this particular case, in this particular time period, most of the costs are being spent on project management. And if I click in on this, I'm able to focus my eyes here on how the project management costs compare the contracted amount to the forecast amount. And I see that my contracts are in excess of my forecast, and that may make me want to ask questions about why. If I understand why there's this gap, great. If I don't, it's time to ask more questions. Similarly here, if I want to understand site monitoring, simply by hovering over it, I see that there's $5 million or $5.5 million in study and site monitoring costs. And when I focus my eyes here, I see two things. First of all, I can see that the vendor forecast for this cost is now less than it was before, and that's a good trend. It means the vendor is saying we're going to be getting fewer bills or bills of lower amounts. But when I come over here, I see that the contracted amount still exceeds our forecast significantly. So this would be a good sign that I'm getting conflicting information from a vendor, something that's neither ideal nor unusual. And I need to work with my contracting folks to make sure we understand exactly what is in the contract and closely manage the delivery of services. Now, without tools like this, it's very hard to pull all of this information together in one place. With Haspoa and Tableau, you're able to see this information with the click of a button. And lastly, we're going to go out one step larger on the financial scale. And here, we're looking at the budget for an entire study over multiple years. So we've gone from the micro, looking at a specific vendor, to the medium term of looking at specific costs across all vendors, and now we're looking at costs across all years. And what you can see here on the left is a breakdown of fictitious alpha studies costs. And you can see that the costs in general are broken down between the purple, which is investigator fees, the light blue, which is CRO fees, and the dark shade, which is central lab services. And as I look at this and thinking about 2017, in my mind, I may be trying to understand, is this good? Is it good that 32% of our costs are going to be spent on investigator fees? And I'm looking for ways to put this information into context. One way to put it into context would be to take a look over at our beta study In this case, the beta study may be a similar study with the same compound or medicine, but a different protocol. And I see here that that in general, the investigator fees are running between 40, 60, or 83%. And so I now think, this may be good. We may be having an effective use of our funds on investigator costs. I can also start to ask other questions. For instance, are the total costs over time higher or lower than were forecasted? In this case, our purple line is the forecast. This is the forecasted cost over time. And our blue line is our actual cost over time. These bars here indicate the difference between the two lines. If the bar is heading up or north, it means that the costs are higher in reality than were forecasted. And when the bar heads down or south, it means the costs are lower than expected. Now this chart uses data you already have, and that data may be sitting in Excel spreadsheets right now or in Hyperion. But by having it all in one place and clickable so that you can get more information by drilling down on it, you'll be able to make better decisions faster. So what's so special about Haspoa and Tableau? Well, we give you the tools to integrate your data from different sources. We give you business intelligence, dashboards, and analytics so that you can quickly understand what's going on in your studies and make the changes you need to make faster and more efficiently. And lastly, we give you, the people running the clinical studies, with the expertise and the experience, the independence to explore your data yourself. What you've seen here is a small sample of the offerings. You can also create your own charts, graphs, and dashboards. We're here to help you. We support all life sciences companies with the insights and knowledge they need to integrate their data and make better decisions. So we hope that you, like other organizations, will reach out and contact us. This is how to reach us. And we may all not discover new cures to CS in time for Jackson, but by working together, we can sure get closer.
Thank you, Debbie. Really appreciate that and all the insight you shared with us today. I am going to open it up for questions to the audience. If you'd like to go ahead and ask a question, you can do so in the Q&A chat box on your interface. So feel free to type in your question, and I will go ahead and address that to Debbie. Give a few minutes. So it looks like we have one question in the Q&A chat. The question is, how do you get all the data into one place?
Sure, that is a great question. And these days, getting data into one place is easier than ever. So we use a combination of connectors that are available from Tableau and other service providers, along with some custom code that's placed on secure servers. This puts all of the data in a central database where your visualizations are updated each time you open up Haspoa.
Great. The next question in the queue is, why is Tableau integral into this?
So Tableau is really integral because the power of making data with decisions is part technology. You need to have good tools, but it's also part what's in the minds, the brains, the experience of all the people involved in running clinical trials. And Tableau has the most user-friendly tools around. It lets financial analysts, clinical trial managers, and many others without technical backgrounds be able to explore data by looking at charts and graphs and drilling in, as I showed you, to understand what's going on and to make effective decisions. So because Tableau is both easy to use, secure, and affordable, it's a great platform.
Thanks, Debbie. It looks like the next question in the queue is, are you able to create other types of graphs, for example, a Gantt chart, or other types of reports?
Yes, absolutely. And let me see if I can quickly and easily show you an example. Just bear with me for 1 second. So Tableau has very good tools for Gantt charts. And I am now, with any luck, sharing my desktop. Are you all able to see a Gantt chart?
We are.
Great. So here's an example of a Gantt chart in Tableau. It's marking off, in this case, we have various different programs and studies within the program. And you're able to see here where the key milestones are, a start date, or a first patient in, or a last patient in. This is also a great way to take a look at some of the filtering capabilities. So let's say I don't want to go all the way back here. I can simply uncheck the early years here. And my Gantt chart will come back up with just a focus on the years that I care about. You can also see below that we've set this up so that you can see financial information at the same time that you're seeing programmatic information.
Great, thanks, Debbie, for sharing. If there's any further questions, feel free to ask it in the Q&A chat box. It looks like we have another question in the queue. The FDA has released some new rules about clinical trials. Will this help us meet them?
You know, that is actually a fascinating question, and only someone really in the know would ask that. So yes, the FDA just released some new regulations, and those are really focused around transparency. They want to make it much easier for people who are trying to choose a clinical study, either for themselves or for someone they care about, to know what the results are in the clinical study and where they are and where the study is in its planned progress. So this type of data will help comply with the new regulations. All of the details aren't out yet about how companies will be able to send information to the clinicaltrials.gov website, but Haspoa and Tableau are really committed to making that as easy as possible for folks sponsoring clinical trials.
Thanks, Debbie. And it looks like the last question in the queue is this for study sites or study sponsors?
So we have versions of this that are available for both. As some of you, as you might remember, we talked at the very beginning about using Excel templates to automatically upload data. So what you see here is a version of the Excel interface for a study site. So here, a study site is outlining the various different services and costs that are related to their end of a clinical trial. So for instance, during this clinical trial that we see here, there are going to be about 20 different services that need to be provided to clinical study participants by the study site. And you see here which entity at the study site is going to be responsible for that. So for instance, a blood draw is going to be analyzed by a lab, and a doctor is going to interview patients to talk about a study endpoints. And then here you see the cost or the payment from the CRO or study sponsor to the study site for each of these. So by using this, the data goes right here from Excel automatically into a database and the Haspoa system. It's then visible in Tableau, as we were just showing you. It also generates useful summary reports, in this case showing that there was about $1,700 earned from a study sponsor, and that amount is broken down between treatment costs, participant compensation, and participant parking. And this automatically shows how much money the fiscal agent at the study site needs to pay to the lab, to the foundation, the hospital, the doctor, et cetera. So this shows you how it would work for a study site, and we've taken a look also at how it works for a study sponsor.
Great, thank you. Again, if there are any further questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A chat box. Right now, it doesn't look like there's any further questions coming in.
I think I saw a question about what was the backbone for the database. And the answer to that is that this can run on several different backbone or different database platforms.
Wonderful. Looks like we have one other question in the Q&A chat box. The dashboards that you shared with us, are these out of the box, or is this all customizable to the particular client?
So the answer to that is yes. So what you've seen here is available out of the box, and it is also easy to customize, either by changing what's on the dashboard or by adding others. We haven't talked at all about this, but all of this is permission-based, and that is so that people who are in one role can see the data on their dashboards that's most useful to them first. It also, by being permission-based, we're also able to keep confidential data confidential. None of the data that is in the system is at the patient level, so there are minimal impacts. There are minimal HIPAA compliance regulations.
Great. With that, I don't think there's any further questions in the Q&A box. I'll give it a few more minutes to see if there's any further questions. But Debbie, I want to thank you for your time today and sharing your expertise with us. I think this is valuable, and I really hope that everybody enjoyed today's content. This session has been recorded, and we will be sending everybody a copy of the recording after the event, probably within a few days. Great. It looks like there are no further questions. So thank you again, and everybody enjoy the rest of their day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.